Hi, welcome to FTCR, and you're listening to the Dr. Babel Fan Podcast, the #1 podcast for Dr. Babel fans in the world. I'm Chris, making this fan. With me is David. Hi. Oh, it's Dr. Babel, and we also have Steven and Stefan.
I'm also Dr. Babel.
We are casual Dr. Babel enjoyers, and we're here today to talk about Dr. Babel's appearance in the new Netflix Sonic series, Sonic Prime.
I'm Dr. Don't. I'm
hi,
so
Dr.
tired.
Okay.
How does it feel to work with I don't know what this bit is, I'm ending it. Sonic Prime, the new Netflix cartoon featuring Sonic the Hedgehog. Finally, over a year later, finished its first season. But to lampshade this immediately, I have two things to lampshade, actually. I'm going to keep talking. Oh. First thing, we know this is a cartoon for children, and we are collectively about 3,000 years old talking about this show. We're still going to bitch. Secondly, we are going to groan and refer to these as 3 seasons, even though they're very clearly 1 season. So, you win, Netflix. You win. We hate you. Sonic Prime, fellas, what'd you think?
It got worse with every season that came out. One was okay, 2 was and then 3 was
I feel like that's just kind of say it all, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, wrap it up. See you.
Bye, guys. Dr. Babel Fancast returns in a week. Check out our Patreon. Isn't it funny?
Don't you love this bit?
You love the
Dr.
You gotta love the
Babel.
baby. You gotta love the baby.
Like pretty much every one of these, I'm the one who's the most positive about this. But even then, it's really, to describe it, it's just really frustrating because there again, like you said, the first season, it's like, okay, it has a decent base to work off of and has a lot of good elements about it, and it's like, okay, I like this bit, I can see where this goes. But then by the time it gets to season 2 and 3, you realize, oh, they didn't have enough material for 23 episodes, and so things just get dragged and dragged, and it's just like, I don't think it's as bad as some people put out, but it's also just like, it doesn't need to be like that. It could, like, even if it was like we've constantly talked about of what if we did a fan edit and just cut a lot of this down. I feel like it would be better, but also ultimately it doesn't do enough to really be all like, oh, it would be like super great or super good. It just the re-edit would just make it, yeah, that's all right.
You know, the worst part about the worst part about like them not the fact that they stretched like a few episodes out into many episodes is that they filled it with action, nonstop, mind-numbing action, and it's like that raises the budget by you writing less script. Now you're just animating a shit ton of characters fighting. Why didn't you just write more words and have people standing around and talking? That takes less time to animate. What are you doing?
And it especially sucks because the animation is really good. Like, the character, like, I've like some people, like, there might be arguments of being like, oh, maybe it's a bit too over characterized with like the certain animation styles.
Overacted.
But honestly, overacted. Personally, I don't find that a problem, and I think it looked visually, the character designs, the models, the world, I think it looks great. It's animated super well, and the fight scenes, every time a fight scene starts, it does start, oh yeah, like, this is good action, but then it just keeps going and going and going, and it's like, it looks good, but it's like the direction and choreography just goes on for so long that it's like, okay, yeah, we're basically just repeating the same fight movements over and over, and it's like, okay, we've seen this so many times, and that just kind of gets tiring.
Season 1 fights are really good, actually. The Sonic Shadow fight it's really good.
Yes, that's probably the highlight of the whole series.
Probably, yeah.
All right, should we explain what this show's about?
Sure.
Oh.
Do we need to?
Okay.
If you're here, do you not know? Why are you here?
Well, I'm just thinking about, like, hey, if you haven't watched Sonic Prime, I guess you could, but if you're not going to bother to, it's 23 episodes, although it's actually 24 episodes. It's about Sonic, and his friends are like, hey, Sonic, you're late and you don't listen to us. And he says, I'm going to hit Eggman, but he doesn't hit Eggman, he hits prism, and Tails said don't, but he did, and it breaks, and all of creation, I guess, fractures, and Sonic doesn't realize it until later, and he goes, oh, where am I? Yes, and who are these Eggmen who are Eggman but not? And then he goes to many other places, and he's got to fix it, and there's a paradox prism, and they got to put it back together, and there's a fake Tails named Nine, and he's going to fix it, but he's going to fix it because he wants to do a thing, and then there's a lot of other versions, and I guess at the end doesn't matter. That's the plot of Sonic Prime.
Sprinkling a lot of conflict because characters don't want to talk about things.
Oh yeah, conflict.
Or they do, and someone doesn't want to listen.
Yeah, or they talk too much, and nobody understands.
Well, there's definitely a lack of understanding, and it doesn't help that our main protagonist, the only one who should be aware that all of reality is fractured, not the way it should be, is, I guess, the dumbest character in the show, Sonic the Hedgehog. He, look, I don't want to be rude, but he is dumb, right?
No, you're right. He's dumb. He's really dumb.
He's
at worst, he's a space case.
Yeah, oh God!
Like
remember, this is canon.
He has to
citation.
He has to learn. Yeah, he has to learn things. He has to learn things several times an episode before he finally realizes, oh, this is what this thing is.
Right.
I had a weird viewing order because I watched season 1 when it came out and went, okay, this seems promising. You know, I'll wait for the rest to come out and watch it.
Yeah.
So we watched season 3 on Friday. On the when we'll upload this. And then I watched season 2 today before recording, and I was quite amused that in season 2, episode 1, Shadow's like, I've been trying to tell you this. Haven't you been listening? And Sonic doesn't even answer him. I'm like, oh, this is where the trend starts. I see. They lampshade this early, and then it never gets better. Cool.
Right. Right. I will say. Right. I should say something positive before I say that the show is terrible. I think Shadow is great in this show. He's the only one who makes any sense. He definitely feels and acts like Shadow. And you know, like Sonic should listen to him. And also Shadow should have probably been in more of the show. I think one of the downfalls of seasons 2 and 3, and I guess season 1, is that Shadow is just missing. I get at the beginning Sonic thinks he's alone, and then eventually you introduce Shadow, and it's like, oh, it ends on a cliffhanger because they're going to do a fight, and then the first episode of season 2 is like, oh, I guess the show is better now. But then Shadow disappears until, I guess, the end of season 2. I forget if he shows up in the middle. It doesn't matter because
he's at the beginning of season 1 as well.
Yeah, he does show up like briefly, and Sonic's like, "Whoa, is that Shadow? Huh? Wait, is that Tails? No, that's not Tails, but he looks like Tails. Oh, I'm in a different universe. Hey, Tails, okay."
Well, season 1, because Shadow has he has like the flashback in I think episode 2. Where it's where he explains like, oh, from his perspective of being all like because he's the one who's like, oh wait, Sonic's gonna fuck something up, let me tell him not to do the thing. Sonic of course doesn't listen. You get the fight. Sonic does the thing and destroys the universe. Then throughout the season, every time Sonic travels to another universe, he sees like the ghost of Shadow being all like, no, Sonic, keep running, don't like. And then they finally see each other at the end of season 1, the beginning of season 2, and it's the whole thing of like, oh, Shadow can't go to any of the worlds, so he basically has to sit on the sidelines while Sonic does everything. And then whenever they go to Ghost Hill, like the other world, then that's the only one Shadow can go to. That's when he becomes like relevant. But it's like, there's not enough Shadow. Like, not having a lot of Shadow in season 1 is like, that's fine. But then like, they have to convolute the whole, oh, he can't go to any universe because he's a weird anomaly. And it's just like, you just put him on the sidelines, and it's like, oh, your best, most logical character. And then you realize, oh, it's their best, most logical character. That's why they have to put him on the sidelines.
Yeah, well, he has to watch this show just like we have to watch this show. And he's the one who's saying, why is this happening? And we're saying, what? We are Shadow. Don't you see?
Oh, we are Shadow.
Oh, that's why we relate to him so much.
and even but yeah, because I had that first initial thought of, oh, Shadow's actually good here compared to the games, comics, and everything else he's appeared in because Sonic is so dumb. But like the more it's like that is a factor, but also I'm like, okay, no, this is actually a good characterization of Shadow. It's like, oh, he's not just an angry dick for no reason. He's like, oh, he actually has a reason for why he's acting this way, but he can also be all like, okay, I'm gonna have some humility in some way. Still, like they both help each other, and like he has he has like more subtler moments throughout, and it's like, okay, yes, this is how you write Shadow.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with Shadow here, not gonna lie. I heard people talk it up, and when I came away from it, I was like, oh yeah, this is just Shadow, right? I missed Shadow the Hedgehog.
Right.
Weird. He's back and he's here of all places.
It is a weird place. Yes.
And another positive I'll say is that, be character writing in some direction aside, I think all the voice actors they got in this are really good. Like they basically, because since it's Wild Brain, it's a Canadian production, so the entire cast is filled with Canadian actors. A lot of them are like there are a lot of like the similar voices in other Canadian. Like all the women are from My Little Pony. Like I believe Tails/9 is I believe Rainbow Dash. Then I know some of them. A funny thing I found out was that all of the Amy's voice actor played the waitress from the live-action Sonic movie.
Oh,
which I don't remember a waitress.
From the first one at the bar.
At the bar, yes.
At the bar, where does she even say anything, or is she just a victim of?
Circumstance.
Right. Well, she has all the darts thrown at her, and she's like, "Oh God, if this wasn't a kids movie, I'd have lost an eye." And it's like, "Well, you're fine though, because it's a kids movie. Don't worry about it, waitress."
Yeah,
These darts are like thorns.
Do you think
rose thorn?
Do you think James Marsden was paid in Canadian dollars for that movie?
Considering,
I hope he got the better exchange rate.
like Devin Mack, I think is a really great Sonic. Like I think he matches like his tone and his voice like perfectly. Like honestly, if Roger decides to step down and they're like, we want to get a new Sonic, and they're like, oh hey Bob, we just get this guy again. Yeah, let's just get this guy again. I think he would do a really good job. Brian Drummond is a great Eggman. Ian Hanlon is a really great Shadow. Yeah, Ashley Ball does a good with all the Tailses.
I'm happy with all of them.
Shannon. Yeah, I like Shannon's, Amy's. And then like the Rouge and Knuckles. It's they're okay, but they're like it's on par with the other main Knuckles and Rouge that are just kind of okay a lot of the time. So it's not like a bad. Yeah, it's at least on par with the games in a lot of ways in terms of just voice quality. Like writing and direction is obviously, but again, the games have that same issue.
I like the show's Rouge and Knuckles more than what we've had the last 20 years. So I'm happy.
Well, Knuckles, because there's two voices of Knuckles, right? There's Knuckles in the beginning before the universe shatters, and then there's a different person who voices the other versions of Knuckles, right?
Yeah, that is a weird thing, and I don't know why. I don't know why they he's the only one they did that.
Right, because when I went back and rewatched episode 1, because like I remember first watching season 1 and going, oh, Knuckles was the only voice that I had some issues with, but then he sounded better once they switched over to New Yoke, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe they're just trying to find, like, they want it to be different, and so normal Knuckles is just sort of like ignored because it's not really who you're going to see that much. And then I was like, oh wait, but it is different. It's a different guy. Vincent Tong is the voice of Renegade Knuckles and Gnarly Knuckles, while
and Dread.
Oh right, that's the other one. and then the guy who's just Knuckles.
Adam Murata, yeah.
Right, and it's a little strange because everyone else, it seems like it's the same people, right? Like Rouge, Kazumi Evans, and then Rebel Rouge, that's who that is. Prim Rouge is who that is, and Baton Rouge. Yeah, that's a good name. Yeah. And then there's a lot of Bigs, there's a lot of Sonics. No, there's one Sonic. Okay, right. Right. So
David, I feel like you've been holding back your power. I feel like you have an immense energy to unleash.
Right. Well, it's because I have issues with the show. I have issues with the show structurally. I've had issues with it since it started because I know a lot of people were like, there seemed to be this consensus when that first came out. A lot of people liked it. And I was like, why? I don't understand. And then, which is... but then as each...
Let me cut it. There's a reason we never talked about this show until now. It's because it would have been us going together and going like, I don't know.
I think it's
3 different times.
Right. Yeah. But, I wanted to give Prime the benefit of the doubt. I like Sonic the Hedgehog. Right. Well, okay, so the previous show we got was Sonic Boom, and Sonic Boom was a show that was focused mostly on comedy, and occasionally there would be a fight scene. It was always the same fight scene because they didn't have a budget for fight scenes.
They just shoved 30 seconds in at the end and be like, all right, it's Sonic, there is action, shut up.
Yeah. But, right, so it was focused on comedy, and then Sonic X before that was, I guess... focused on whatever Sonic X was focused on. It was more action. There was more whatever. But it's like, okay, so Sonic Prime seems to be this post-Sonic resurgence, kind of recalibrating and refocusing what the franchise is as a whole. It's like...
almost like a pendulum swing back from Boom.
Right, like
it feels like someone looked at Boom internally and was like, oh no, this can't be a comedy. It's Sonic. There needs to be action.
Right, it needs to be action with occasional comedy. And I think occasionally they do attempt some comedy, but I can't remember how often I laughed in this show.
Didn't you watch the Netflix Try Not to Laugh challenge?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
That's true. I think we succeeded.
I don't think
the Sonic Prime Try Not to Come challenge, I think we collectively failed.
Right. So, season 1, I was like, I don't think I like this. But I also wanted to wait to see what they would do because it was clearly like we're setting things up. So maybe they were going to find their groove. Then season 2 happened. And I'm like, I still don't like this.
But David, speaking of people online, so many people said season 2 was better than the season 1. I don't know what.
I don't
what?
know. Right.
How?
But... right. There has been a consensus, it feels like, that season 3 is weaker, and so people are like, I guess maybe the show wasn't great as a whole. But I guess for a lot of people, it feels like they didn't stick the landing. To me, I feel like there were issues from the beginning.
Yep.
Because it... Okay, so the...
Episode 3 felt like the car that shouldn't be running anymore, finally just breaking apart.
Right. Okay.
Not to be too mean, but that's really just how I felt about it. Even in context of watching everything out of order, I guess. Well, I'm just like, no matter how you get to these last episodes, they are just not very good.
Well, this just goes to show how important a script is. Like, that's the skeleton. Like, you have to make that part perfect. And then maybe it's okay for other things to fail because those are just different body parts. Like, you need a skeleton to keep things together.
Yeah.
I think the show sort of forgot what it was meant to be about, and it would sometimes try to set something up and then immediately forget about it. So, like, skimming through season 1 again, it was like, I mean, I did vaguely remember it, but there is definitely an emphasis on the palm tree, right? Like, the palm tree is the most important thing to Sonic the Hedgehog's world. It is the symbol of his friends and freedom and the beach. And you also have a weird flashback, which I believe was in episode 5? Right. Oh, God. Okay. The first season. Okay. Right. Oh, right. Well, because I have issues with it structurally, and it's also like the way it's formatted. Like the beginning, the first season of the show does a lot of flashbacks. Sometimes it's a flashback to a thing we haven't seen, and then sometimes it's a flashback to a thing we have seen. Because the show... The show actually... Go ahead. Oh, I was saying like the show... Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to add on being all like season 1 is structured as if it's trying to have a mystery of being like, oh, there's something we haven't revealed. That's why we're doing Breaking Bad style, like, flashing back at the beginning of every episode. But it's like, there is no mystery. It's exactly
really isn't.
What, yeah.
No, there isn't a mystery. There were moments where I'm like...
with him shattering the universe. We know what happens.
Right. Right, you said Breaking Bad. My thought was almost like, oh, it's Memento. Okay, so apparently, right. So when I first watched season 1, afterwards I was like, so I just started saying nonsense, or just started talking about the show aloud, and Cal grabbed his phone and started recording my voice. And I was like, oh, okay. So I listened back to some of that, and man, I was I might have been a little rude, but I was also really confused. And at one point I was like, wow, the writers, like the reason they have it set up is because they went, we are writers and we are writing. And how do you do writing? Well, clearly you have to make a non-chronological format of a show. And I heard and was like, wow, like, is that me being rude? But also I'm like, well, it kind of feels, it felt like the show was sort of caught in the middle as to what it wanted to be. And it's like, well, it's a show for kids, but it also has to appeal to Sonic fans. But
I feel
like, so but like, there are plenty of kid shows that respect the audience, and it's not like Sonic Prime is talking down all the time, but there are moments where it feels like they don't trust the audience to remember anything. Yes, right. I was going to say, it almost feels like, okay, so it's a Netflix show. It was always a Netflix show. And there's the sense that episode 8 of season 1 and the first episode of season 2 were just supposed to happen at the same time. Like they were writing, it's all dropping at once. And then that's not going to happen. But at the same time, it feels like the first few episodes assumed you would only watch one a week, like a normal television show. And we're just reminding you because this is serialized television that happens once a week.
Yeah.
But that's not what it ever was going to be because it was Netflix. Because I don't think Netflix does the one a week at a time thing generally.
No.
I think there's like a couple exceptions, but those are like talk shows. Sonic would be a weird place.
They've just now recently started doing that with anime, but that's after pretty much like years of people nagging at them to actually release anime normally instead of dumping out half a season after half a season's already aired.
Right. So
yeah.
Right. So when I'm thinking about the show and when I'm talking, what I want to talk about the show, it's like I'm caught between what is the show and what did they do? But then I'm also thinking, man, like, how do you make this a better show? So I just keep on thinking about like a better version of what Sonic Prime was trying to be. And so I just kind of get caught up. But okay, right.
I know there's eventually going to be a supercut of this, right? Someone's going to make it, right? If you do, dear supercutter, and also listening to this, please edit it in chronological order or something. Like, there's enough flashbacks in season 1 in episodes like 2 through 3. Like, if you put all the flashbacks together, it's enough to make a 20-minute episode, and that could just be episode 1 right there. Like, that's how the show could start. You could see,
Yeah, like you were saying they did a lot of flashbacks because they want to feel like, oh, we're writers, we have to do that. And no, I think season 2 and 3 confirmed this. They did that to pad out time.
Oh, I mean,
they did that because it's like, they realized in that storyboarding thing of like, because we know for a fact, it was greenlit with the 23/24 episodes from the beginning, and then Netflix split up, so it's like one long season, and they probably realized in their storyboarding, oh, we don't have 24 episodes worth of story to tell, but that was greenlit, they had to produce that, so it's like, well, okay, let's stretch out, Steven, you mentioned in the text chat about like 2 episodes in season 2 where something happens like in one episode, and then you get to the next episode and everything basically restarts at the beginning, like basically nothing happens. So it's like, that could have just
I'll give context to that. In season 2, episodes 203 and 204. It's when the Eggmans or the Chaos Council go to Blue World, Ocean World. What's it called? No something.
No place.
No place.
Sure.
No, which
should be the name of Shatterverse or the Grim, but no. Ocean World's called No Place.
Right. Like it should be. Oh man. Like
No Land.
Right. What is
No Land? Oh, I like that.
No Land. Yeah. Or you could call the ocean something. There's Sonic places with ocean in the title, right?
Right.
It's Ocean Palace.
Black Ocean Zone.
Oceans.
Whatever it's called. The Eggmen go there, and they're there to take the blue piece. And episode 203 starts with them getting the blue shard. And then episodes 203 and 204 about it going to the pirates, going to Sonic, and then ending up back in the hands of the Eggmen. And it's like, so 204 ends how 203 starts. Great. There was 2 whole episodes wasted. And I feel like if you just had them get the blue piece, combine that with episode 202 where they get the green piece, it's like all 3 of those episodes could fit in one episode. It was clearly stretched out and just filled with action.
And also, and because the end of 203 has the the stupidest thing that anybody in this, like, in the story has done, where you have Dredd who wants to betray his group in order to get the shard. So Sonic runs off to fight the doctors to get the shard, and he goes to his crew being like, "Oh, look, Sonic betrayed us. He's running away to the shard. So screw him." Sonic runs back. They're all like, "Screw you, Sonic. You betrayed us." He's holding the shard in front of them. Sonic makes that anxiety, like, shaking face, which is how I feel all the time. And then he's just like, and then the next episode literally starts where he's like, "I'm standing right here with the shard.
I brought it back to you."
And they're literally like, "You have a point, but still." And then it's the half.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
The entire half the episode is just a fight scene of him, Sonic running away from Dredd and the crew.
That's because they had to stretch it out.
Yeah, and then they lose the shard again, so Sonic's like, "Okay, I'm fighting with you guys again, see, I'm good guy," and then Dredd's like, "Haha, I'm betraying you," and leaves, and it's like, yeah, again, you could have just skipped that whole Dredd trying to turn the crew against Sonic, because it's really stupid and they shouldn't, there was no reason why they would believe that, and then just skip right to Dredd betraying them, and there you go. That's a whole episode basically cut out, and there you go.
Right. Cut out 2 episodes there.
Yeah.
Right. I guess there are multiple instances where a group goes, "Oh, Sonic, we wanted to trust you. Well, now we can't trust you. Okay, well, we'll trust you again.
Let's fight."
Right.
No, you got to fight first.
Well, we got to fight. Right. Because, like, right. So in the first season, when Sonic is fighting with the Resistance group, whatever they're called, in New York City, which is spelled wrong the whole time.
Don't get me started on New YOKE City. Don't. I can't.
Right. So you have,
more like New Woke City.
Right.
Dr. Babble. No.
Right. So Dr. Yoke. So in New York. Right. So you have him show up, and it's like, "Oh, you are meant to be my friends," but you. At first, he's like, "Well, you've just lost your memory." Sonic he eventually comes to the conclusion that I guess I ruined reality. He comes to that conclusion, then goes to another universe and starts over from scratch. But that's not the point right now. But I mean, that is something to think about. Once he gathers everyone and kind of realizes the situation, and he has them team up together, he touches the shard and vanishes, and then he returns. And when he returns, It's like they set something up about what the rules of this multiverse are meant to be, and then completely forget what those rules are. Because Sonic goes to the maze. What's it called? The jungle?
Boss Cage Maze.
The Boss Cage Maze. He goes there, hangs out with them for a bit, then goes back to New York City and discovers that weeks have passed since he was there, right? Like, the Resistance, instead of being like this small group that can't get anything done, have suddenly become a force to be reckoned with, actively interfering in the Chaos Council's plans. And then they're like, "Well, Sonic, you betrayed us. You and that fox
That's to
ran
stretch
away."
it out.
Right, but then when you see their flashback, what do you see? You see Nine sneak away. He sneaks out into the tunnel, into the hallway. He has the shard. They look at him and go, "Oh, he's going to help us." And then he leaves. Sonic is not there with him. Sonic is nowhere to be seen. They acknowledge that Sonic vanished, but he didn't vanish with Nine. He vanished elsewhere. Like, they didn't see him disappear, but they also definitely didn't see him with Nine. So they could have been like, "Did Nine try to kill you? Did not, like, what happened? Where did you go?" But they have to distrust him, I guess, because then, but okay, so then what happens is that
Well,
when
they both disappeared for weeks at a time, so they could assume that they both went together. I don't know.
But they saw Nine leave on his own. They never saw Sonic leave as well.
But he left the same. Sonic left like 5 minutes later.
Well, but why would Sonic leave 5 minutes later? It doesn't make any. They go in there, like, the other Eggmen go in there, and oh, he's not there, and like, I don't know. But then Sonic shows up. They distrust him. But then I guess they let him fight, and then Nine shows up again. Nine scoops Sonic up and takes him to the Grim for a minute, and then they go back to New York City. They're still in that battle that Sonic left, so time hasn't changed that way, which I guess is fine, but also it's not fine, because then eventually the Chaos Council, we discover, oh, they've followed Sonic. Like they're going out into the Shatterverse and they're trying to find things because they realize, oh, there's this multiverse. They do go to the Boss Cage Maze and No Place. They go to these places. And then when we catch up with the Resistance fighters, they're just like, oh, wow, I guess, did we win? Like, they're just hanging out and there's no power in the city because I guess the Chaos Council left and there's no power in the city. If it's been weeks, they've done nothing. But I don't think we're meant to think it's been weeks. It's just been a day. But it should be weeks. But then they come back and everything turns back on and they go, oh, I guess we didn't win and we can't make things the way they want to be. The plot point of time passing differently in each shatter space vanishes after the one episode where Sonic went, I guess time passes differently in each shatter space. It's no longer relevant to the plot. They throw it out. What are the rules? There are no rules, especially when it's like, well, what is the world that's being created, and does any of it matter? Are they separate? Are they pieces? We don't even know what the Chaos Council are. In the first episode, they are vague, and they say to Sonic, because he's like, oh, hey, are you like Eggman's family or whatever? And they just say, like, we are what we are, always have been, always will be, which is weird and vague. Like, I guess they don't even know where they came from, which you think would set up something. And there is at the end of season 2 when they make the perfect life form, which is Eggman, I guess, a giant Eggman with a shiny mustache. But like,
okay,
they never.
My head hurts.
They don't explain it.
The Eggman thing, because you set up with the whole thing of like, oh, here's this world that has alternate versions of Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Rouge, Big, and then Eggman, but Eggman is split into 5 different versions. Then you go to another universe and you have Tails, Amy, Knuckles, Rouge, Big, but no Eggman. And then you go to another universe where it has, again, those 5, but no Eggman. So there's kind of this weird thing of like, you're thinking that, oh, when the Shatter Space split, because it's the prism has 5 pieces and they're split up. So you're thinking, oh, everybody who got caught up in like everybody got caught up in the Flash except for Sonic and Shadow because they're weird anomalies, is like they got split into 5 different versions, and for some reason all of the Eggman converged into one universe, and that's how they take over. So from the beginning you're like, okay, that's how it is, but in the end there's only 3 universes, and then one other universe is basically just a ghost version of the main universe, and then the 5th universe is literally nothing. So there's this weird thing of like, okay, everybody has 3 variants except for the Eggmen, which have 5 variants in one universe. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, now Bri Brain. Oh, okay, yeah. The other thing is that because the story starts with you assuming that, oh, the Shard split everybody up into these variants. So every variant is like a piece of the original person. So you're thinking that, oh, the story is about repairing the universe back together, which will put everybody back into their own spots. And that creates the conflict of 9 being all like, oh, I don't want everything to go back to normal because I'm 9. I don't want to become Tails. And that leads to the conflict with Sonic. But then by the end of it, they end up being all like, oh no, actually, maybe everybody already existed in this universe and Shattering the Prism just made it like able to visit these other universes. And then by the end,
that doesn't make sense though, because why is there no alternate Sonic or Shadow?
Well, there is that, because like New York City feels like we're presenting a world where if Sonic didn't exist, Eggman would have won, but they don't actually have normal. That's what it felt like to me at the beginning. Yeah. Of course, the other universes don't seem to matter because, like in this world, Sonic didn't exist. Everyone's a jungle.
In the Grim, no one exists.
No one exists, right? Right, it is weird that there are 5 universes and 5 Eggmen, which feels like the story should have been different, and also maybe all the Eggmen shouldn't have been together at once, but I guess then you would have had to create 2 other universes, which they didn't bother to do, because really, if there's 5, then like the Ghost Hill should just be a phantom of the original and not one of the 5 they're dealing with either. Like, this is what it's supposed to be. Right, so, because in season 1, when Sonic sees the shard and I guess finally remembers everything that's happened up to that point, because there is this weird thing like, oh wait, how did I get here? Oh, I remember fighting Shadow. Oh wait, then I remember going here. Like there's a little bit of memory loss, which I guess is just so that we can be, drip fed little bits and pieces of what should have just been episode 1, Sonic in his world, so we can get an establishment of what is existence before we shatter it. Like, structure, plot. Right. So then he's like, oh, I did this. He comes to the realization that he's the one that shattered the universe and made it into these pieces. And we do see like the red one, which is powering New York City. It's like it floats over into space. And I guess we are then meant to presume that a universe builds around it. But then also then what should be the plot of putting all these pieces together and then dealing with the existential crisis of, oh, if we fix things, I will not exist. It's like hinted at in 1 or 2 lines by 9, where he's like, you never thought about what I wanted. And it's like, oh, is he thinking about the fact he might not exist if things are fixed? But I don't even know if that is the case, and certainly nobody else is thinking that.
Nor is it ever explained.
No, like that should be a point. And then when...
It could have been an internal conflict for Sonic.
Oh, it should have. It totally should have been. Like, that should have been a huge conflict of like, oh yeah, I ruined things and all my friends are gone and now all of you exist. But if I bring back my friends, then you won't exist. And so then you could have gotten to a point where 9 and maybe the other 2 Tails all work together and figure out a way to somehow have the original universe come back, but have them all exist. But instead, he's just like, oh yeah, Sonic, stand in this tube, and then I'll put your power back into the Paradox Prism. And when he does that, the prism vanishes, right? Like, he clearly didn't figure anything out. Like, but I guess by doing that, then Ghost Hill puts itself back together, and so Sonic and Shadow Sonic has to go there to survive it all, and everyone else is like, yeah, I guess we're all going home. But it's like, so are you going home? Do you all survive? Or is it that the moment Sonic goes to Ghost Hill and it becomes Green Hill again, then they'll all vanish? They don't explain it, and it doesn't matter. I get it. And that's why, because it's also weird when the universe restarts, because then it's like, oh, remember when Shadow got kicked out and he lost his Chaos Emerald and it went into the void, and you're thinking, oh, maybe at some point Shadow will get lost to the void, but he'll come back because he'll have the Chaos Emerald. Like, none of that happens. I think, and I feel like even Shadow was wasted in the very end of season 3, because like he falls down a hole and you're like, wow, he's going to come back in a cool way, but he doesn't. Sonic also falls down the hole and Shadow goes, I'm in a hole. And Sonic is like, whoa, you're
I've been down here beating up robots, Sonic. It's like, what?
Right, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, we're dealing with like, it's like 3 or 4 episodes of pure, we're fighting in a big empty field.
Yep.
And there's the Citadel, and I'm like, they should go in the Citadel. Like, I'm sitting there going, okay, so if I was doing this, you would have the episode where they're like fighting to get into the Citadel, and then like there's a ragtag group where one version of each character is there. So like maybe you have Dread Knuckles and like Ruby, what's her Rusty
Rebel?
Rose, right?
Oh, Rusty, yeah.
Right. I was gonna say Ruby Rose, but like wasn't she Batwoman or something? It doesn't matter. And
Mangy Tails is like chewing through power cords. And
right.
Like, keep doing that, Mangy.
So you have like just a group where it's not the 3 groups where they know each other. It's all mixed up, and Sonic's in the lead, and they're going through the Citadel, and they have to like fight things, and then eventually Sonic finds Shadow, and he's like, oh yeah, I let them think that I was defeated, but I've been trying to infiltrate and figure out how to stop Nine's evil plan. Like, that's what it should have been, instead of just, you found me in my hole, I guess I can get out of the hole now. And I don't know why 9 is just standing at the top. Like, you could be inside,
watching the whole time. It's I don't even. I think they show the inside of the Citadel once. The entire time, pretty much the entire time, is just fighting outside in the Grim, just in the empty space with the robot duplicates, and that's it.
They have both sides rally and come at each other 3 separate times.
Yeah, 3 times.
3 times. Like, that's the wrong rule of threes.
Right. So 9 is like, oh, Graham, it can be whatever we want. Also, that should have been then like a point, right? Okay, so 9 is from New York City, and New York City is messed up, right? It used to be Green Hill, and now it's not. It's just Robotropolis. It's screwed up. Now in SatAM, they want to reclaim Robotropolis because like there is no alternative. Tail or 9 at this point should have been like, hey guys, I am offering you an alternative. You want to reclaim this city. but it's screwed up. It's never going to be back to the way you want. But if you come with me to the Grim, I can create the world you want. I started thinking about the plot of 0 Hour, a DC Comics event from 1994, in which Hal Jordan went insane because the city he called home, Coast City, was destroyed by Cyborg Superman. And he goes crazy and he becomes Parallax. And his plan is that I'm going to wipe out the multiverse and then recreate it and have perfect worlds for everyone. And it's like, oh yeah, look, Man of Action is run by comic people. That is why there are
David. When I was watching season 3 with you guys, I mentioned the Marvel comic Infinity Warps, which kind of has a similar thing where Gamora goes crazy, gets the Infinity Stones, and wipes out half the universe by folding the universe on top of each other, so all the characters are melded with another character. And so it's this whole thing of like, oh, it's just a universe where so you have like Spider-Man and Moon Knight combined to become Arachnite and like that kind of stuff. There's like I think like Wolverine and Emma Frost are together to become. So basically, all the characters are like fusions, and by the end of the story, it's like a bunch of regular characters like find a way to bring the Infinity Stones back so they can put the universe back to normal. But a lot of the characters are like, no, like we have our own like lives and like pasts here. We don't want to get rid of that, so they find a way to basically let everything go back to normal while also keeping the Infinity Warps world as their own universe, so they aren't like killing these newly created people. So it kind of ends up being what this end of Sonic Prime does, but again, like so vague, you aren't even sure if that's actually what happened.
Yeah, but it's so vague.
It sounds like interesting and like with character motivations that are interesting to delve into. I think that's a mistake. I think this
I'm reminded the other thing of the Grim, like when Nine creates the robot duplicates of Knuckles, Rouge, and whatever, and then Sonic's like, what did you do to my friends? And I'm like, Sonic, you know they're robots. It's like, what do you mean? Like, oh, what did you...
You just fought a version of yourself.
Yeah, you
get the concept, Sonic.
You fought a Metal Sonic, and again, even though this is supposed to be the game Sonic, he has no opinion. He sees a clearly Metal Sonic, and it's like, this is the first time I've ever seen this.
Can we talk about that for a second? Like, this is not game Sonic. Like, it's not him. He doesn't act like him. He doesn't think like him. He's so stupid.
Right.
Yeah, like what?
Which isn't a problem on its own, right? Like if the executive producer wants to say this is the game Sonic, obviously it's not. We can easily discard that. Whatever.
That's just an executive producer's opinion.
To your point. Yeah, but like to your point, it doesn't make him any less of a frustrating character to have to follow for sure.
Right. It is. I think it's frustrating either way. But then to say, oh, this is part of the game universe where you've seen Sonic go through arcs, and he's like, well, sort of, where he's like, oh yeah, I'm a loner. I'm with friends. I'm a loner. Like it makes then the initial conflict of Sonic just does whatever he wants to do seems sort of weird. Like, oh, you should be working as a team. Like. That's what Sonic Heroes is all about. Yeah. He's the one trumpeting the superpower of teamwork. Because up to that point, Sonic's just kind of doing whatever the heck he wants with Tails sometimes. So he's learned that lesson. But now you're here in this world where he does, I guess he's always working with these people, and they like him, but maybe they don't like him, but maybe they love him, but maybe they're annoyed by him all the time. It doesn't feel rooted in like any... So even when you get to the final episode and Sonic has learned his lesson and everyone's like, wow, Sonic, you sure are acting different, none of it really feels earned. Chris, I interrupted you.
Yeah. He learns that halfway through season 1, though. He says,
yeah, he does.
If only I'd listened to my friends. He learns it right there. But then at the end of the whole show, he's like, I learned something.
Right, but
if anything, I would have preferred this as a clean slate approach in the sense of like start from a world where they're all friends already and whatever shared experiences kind of lead them to that point. But I really thought this was setting up like kind of a breakdown of at least the Sonic's character of like, you always run into things, you trust everything to work out. This series is going to beat into you that maybe sometimes you need to stop and think. I'm like, okay, interesting, right?
Yeah.
And then by splitting up all these characters into like different and or maybe negative parts of themselves, then they can re-examine on the origin character and actually do something with character development and make something interesting and examine finally. And then it just does it. It just does it. We don't even know if they're splits of them or if they're different dimensions anymore.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, and it's so because of the whole thing about because if this obviously if they never said this, if they never said, oh, this is game canon thing, and it was always its own like separate thing, Sonic would still like there'd still be kind of like this is a weird portrayal of Sonic. Like it would still like it wouldn't fix Sonic's problems, but like if it's just like this is its own completely separate thing, and it's like okay, it's like this is like we don't it doesn't matter of like, oh, how did these guys meet each other? Did they meet each other the same thing the way like they did in the games? Like like questions like that don't matter. Like where this takes place in the quote unquote timeline of Sonic, that also doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter like if this takes place after Sonic Advance 3 or whatever. Like that is all just like fanboy. It's fanboys. It's the problem is that like Sonic's personality and like the way he's written is it's not even just like fit. That it's inconsistent. It's not even just it's inconsistent. It's just poor. Like the closest you could think of is Lost World, and even then, this Sonic is not as bad as he acts in Lost World. And then you also have the whole thing of like, okay, so when you have things that happen to Sonic that are similar to stuff that have happened before to him, and he doesn't acknowledge it, then that also means like, oh, it's like, oh, like he's surprised about multiversal travel. And it's like, but he's done that since the beginning. Like
special stages?
Yeah, right. Like you have the whole, again, like he's surprised by Chaos Sonic. And it's like, well, I will give it credit that I like the idea of a Metal Sonic that is a shit talker, like a shit, like we always have like the Metal Sonic who's just the silent, never speak. Like that's like the opposite of Sonic. I like the idea of a Metal Sonic that is just even more annoying than Sonic. Like I think that's a really good idea. But the fact that again,
like on paper, that could have went with the idea of shining a mirror back on all of these characters, right? Like Sonic having to face something that's kind of just him, but with his worst qualities cranked up to make him look at himself and be like, oh my god, have I been like this? Right. No wonder no one likes me.
Right, but you don't really get that self-reflection. You there are so many moments where it feels like we should be diving into the characterization, and there should be some self-reflection, and there should be some understanding, and he
sort of does when he fights Metal Sonic. Right?
A little bit, yeah.
Like if I'm half as annoying as that guy, then
yeah, it does happen.
Right,
like it's a joke, and I'm like,
right, but but then it doesn't.
Technically wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
No, right. So he says that, but then it doesn't feel like Sonic moving forward is any different, because we go back to season 3 and the fighting in the Grim. Like he's already learned, I should have listened to my friends and worked with them better. But now all of creation has shattered into pieces. He has to be kind of like told, wait, step back, we need to make a plan, and you can't be at the forefront of it because 9 needs you to finish the thing he's doing. And it takes him a while to go, okay, wait a minute, let me do that. Oh, right. So I was talking about Zero Hour. I never finished the thing because I don't know who's read Zero Hour, but it is the thing where like Hal Jordan is the bad guy and he offers all these things. So it was like, I just wanted, like, if 9 had said to Dread Knuckles, if you join me, I'll create you a world where you're always looking for treasure forever, and you'll always find it, and it'll be great. And he's like, her. Or if the New York people was like, I just want it to be a green place. I can make you a green place, and you can live there forever. And you'd be like, there's no temptation. It feels very black and white, even though I guess it's meant to be gray, because 9 took 2 palm trees and made their hammock and said, Sonic, you could live here. And Sonic is like, oh, wow, I didn't realize you were making this thing for me in the final episode. Where it's like, does that matter? Because clearly he didn't want to help you. He didn't want to help you return your world. And he didn't care about the world that he came from in the first place. It doesn't matter.
And he also
he's like,
tries to genocide a whole city or whole world.
Oh, yeah.
And also, the very first time that Sonic and Tails meet, Tails tries to kill him. Like, not even self-defense. He chases him, tries to stab him, chases him. Yeah, Sonic's like, whoa, stop. Like, clearly saying, I'm not your enemy. Tails just tries to kill him. Like, what? No, he's a bad person.
Right.
As long as I'm around, you'll always have a enemy.
Oh, my God.
Just tell me when I need a punch.
I forgot that those lines are in the first episode while he's floating. And I guess it's like the shadows of all of his friends, except Shadow, because Shadow didn't shatter.
And also the fact that in that Ghost Hill, he has to be reminded 3 times that those aren't real people, that they're just...
Except the moment they are real, because in that episode, in the last episode of season 2, when when 9 is putting the Paradox Prison back together, there is a brief wave where they all come to life, and Amy's like, wait, what the heck just happened? And it's like, oh, wait, so is it really them, or is it not really them? Because we still don't understand if the different versions are meant to be pieces of a whole. It feels like they're setting that up with the Chaos Council, and each Eggman is meant to be a piece of the whole Eggman. But then it's like, it gets a little fuzzy when you're like, okay, well, like, I guess Pirate Knuckles collects treasure. I guess that's sort of what Knuckles does. Tails is feral in one world, I guess, because he's a fox. It all sort of falls apart if you try to. Yeah. And then there's all the Amy's. Oh God, I didn't think about Rusty. Rusty Rose. Right, you got Rusty Rose, but then you have also got like the other Amy's, and then also thinking about like the Flickies. Oh, God, the Flicky, because okay, so
Birdie.
No, because Rusty Rose has a bird in her. So in that first episode, when Sonic fights robots and they break apart and there's nothing inside, he's like, hey, there's no Flickies in these robots. You're like, oh wow, that's interesting. But it's also weird because Sonic has fought robots in the games without. It doesn't matter. So he runs off, and then there's Ruby Rose. God damn it, there's Rusty Rose, and Rusty Rose is like, hey. I have a Flicky in me. Also, I guess she's a cyborg, so I guess she was Amy and then became robot Amy, and she's got this bird in her. And then in season 3, it's like, oh, actually, I don't need this bird in me to power me. It was actually just a symbolic representation of entrapment. So the so I would be loyal to the Chaos Council, which is weird because she was programmed to trust them. So it wasn't like, oh, here's this bird to remind you of things. It was literally, we programmed you to be this. Oh wait, you've broken through from that programming. And then also
she broke through it in the second season.
Like, in the second season,
yeah,
right. So she didn't need to like.
The bird was irrelevant.
Right. I guess they wanted a moment where Rusty Rose sees this other robot version of Amy, and it's like, oh, I'm still some. But like, if she's already gone through an arc and you see these two together, it's like, well, you've missed that moment. And also, wow, if she was then augmented to become mostly robot, she sure isn't sad about the fact that she's not flesh and blood like Pirate Amy and Jungle Amy. Like, I don't know, that might make me get a little, like, if that was me and I was a robot and here's another version of me that's no longer, that isn't a robot, never went through it, and you realized, oh, I was like messed with and then programmed to do things, and that's not what I wanted to be. Like, whoa, that's weird stuff, but it doesn't matter to her because I guess she's still mostly but what were you gonna say, Steven?
Was I?
I interrupted you before I went off on that.
Yeah.
You were like, but I don't even know what you were going to say.
I was probably going to say,
I think like a lot of there are like a lot of those pieces, like on paper they have good ideas to them, like like the idea of there being a roboticized Amy who ends up eventually becoming good and joining one of the hero teams, like that's a really good concept. The idea of like the Knuckles being like the Knuckles pirate being very antagonistic, of like being like an actual like asshole pirate, like that's a good idea. The idea of 9 basically being a Tails who has basically become bitter, like over being bullied for so long and being on his own, that he ends up becoming a villain by the end. Like that idea is that's also a really good idea. Like there are these pieces of the characters that are like, oh, they're good like general concepts that if you kind of fleshed out a bit more or let breathe in a different environment, you probably could get something out of it. But like Dread just ends up basically being like a nuisance that kind of causes trouble but never really gets any actual character meaning.
Or Rouge.
Rouge doesn't really get anything in any of the timelines.
No.
There's a little bit of like a Thorn Amy in the boss cage who kind of has like a slightly interesting development to it, but they kind of resolve that within like the first 2 episodes,
which should have been just one episode. Like it structurally it fits as just one. But yeah, like, if you've given Big and Rouge their own shatter spaces to have their own arcs and stories, then you could have had 7 shards. Hello?
Right. Or, I mean, you still could have had
and also
5 shards, but just had
and you could have made use of...
Yeah.
and you could have made use of your 24 episodes.
I was about to say that next.
To stretch out, yeah.
Yeah, because it feels like
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
right. It feels like a 12-episode show that became 24, but then they were like, oh, but you're not going to get any extra money because I'm sure it has to do with, well, we can't create 2 new worlds. But
we can spend all the time to animate all these files.
Yeah,
mean,
no,
there
that
is
doesn't add. That math doesn't work.
I don't even.
Yeah, I do. I know. I believe that it is more expensive to create new assets than it is for the animators to use the assets they have to, again, like the fight scenes and the character animation. Like, I think.
I don't know. The pirate world was water and had some things sticking out of it. The jungle world was the same tree model, probably replicated everywhere. Like,
right. Well, if they're,
I mean, if
they're trying to cut corners already,
Yeah.
like that means that there had been a world where,
I suppose.
like big. Although you think like ocean world, maybe that should have been big because he's like, I love to fish, and what's the best place to fish? The ocean.
Because you can't focus on Big and not Knuckles.
Not
And,
right,
and also and also the fact that, like, in this, again, another thing to kind of weirdly like separate it from the games is that according to this world, Green Hill is basically all that exists in Sonic's world. Green Hill is the only thing that matters, and every other universe you go to is just another version of like Green Hill, except the forest is taken over. Green Hill, except it's flooded over. Green Hill, except Eggman took. So it's like, yeah, again, if this was the Prism. Like Prism, like, destroyed in Green Hill, so if all the other universes are Green Hill, it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. It's like Green Hill isn't the only thing in the universe, it's just that's what the Prism did. But again, by the end, it's kind of confusing, so you're not really sure if that was the intention or not.
I also like the idea of Shadow just hanging out in Green Hill.
Man,
it is funny. It's interesting because I'm like, I look at the water world and the things you guys said, water world, and I'm just like, oh man, what if Big was like a rival pirate and they were fighting, and that way he just gets to,
well, because there are
have a little more going on.
Yeah, but there's Jacksepticeye.
We had mentioned.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, we had mentioned that the fact that it's like of this Canadian cast, and then there's just Jacksepticeye and Valkyrie, just inexplicably there.
Yeah,
his characters even call him Jack.
Oh, he's Captain Jack Sparrow.
No, just Jack.
Right. Oh man. Okay. Right. I had a brief thought. I've remembered it now. Right. So if we're dealing with all these different versions of all these different characters, and it's like, oh, you've made Tails a villain at the end, which is like, oh, that's interesting. They could have also done something which is extremely obvious, which I believe Sonic Underground did, which the Archie comics definitely did. And I mean, as sort of integral to the original SOA, Sega of America version of Robotnik. But why isn't there a version of Eggman who's not a villain, who is like the sympathetic version of him, the like thoughtful? Because like Eggman,
Kintobor.
Right? Like, why isn't there a Kintobor equivalent like in one of these worlds? Because then also, if you actually did the hey everyone, like all these characters are just different parts of what was originally there, then you could then deal with the conundrum of, oh, I restore all my friends, but I'm also going to erase the only good version of Eggman that exists. But I guess that doesn't matter, and we just need 5 villains, and one of them is a baby, and the baby...
This is the Dr. Babble fan cast, so I'd appreciate it if you could walk back your comments.
That's fun.
I like the old man.
Better,
I like the. I mean, the 5 of them aren't great, but I'd probably say I like the old man the most.
Okay, Stefan, you can't answer because I feel like you would know. Steven, David, does one of you want to take the challenge to name all 5 of them without?
I think I could.
Okay.
There's Dr. Don't, Dr. Babble, Mr.
Okay.
Dr. Eggman, Dr. Deep, and what's the old man's Dr. Dunnit?
Damn, you got it.
Hell yeah.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was sitting here like I could get 3 of the 5, but I couldn't remember Dr. Dunnit.
I think it's Dr. Dunnit.
Yeah. Dunnit's
right.
the old guy, yeah, because I believe Deep is like Deep is like the one who's always doing yoga.
The young adult.
Who's like, yeah, the P's. Yeah, you have a Deep. Don't is the gamer.
We all know who they are.
He's just like, yeah.
Yeah. Which I guess it sort of seems like 5 aspects of Eggman's personality.
Not
like,
really. Dr. Deep doesn't represent Eggman at all.
I don't know. I mean,
old?
I think about the hero's manual where he's like he's a gentleman, he's a feminist. Like I think Eggman thinks he is a man of culture. Right. I think
Dr. Deep feminist art.
Right.
What gets me is that he's talking about like juice cleansing at a point, and I'm like, so is he hipster?
Yes,
I don't-
they call him a
This
hipster
character.
at some point, actually.
right. I think Eggman thinks he's a man of culture. But his whole deal is
Okay,
my
sure.
culture's the best culture. So if you don't love
Right.
me,
Oh, no.
then clearly you are not.
Eggman, no.
Right, and so Mr. Dr. Eggman is just normal Eggman. Dunn is like, oh, Eggman's old, because I guess he's old.
He could be 50.
Right, yeah, he's old. So, and then Dr. Babel is like, well, sometimes he's
childish
right, he's
tendencies, I
he's
guess.
temper tantrums. And then what's the other one?
Yeah.
No, the gamer.
The
Who's
gamer.
basically-
Gamer
he's basically-
Eggman. His fascination with tech.
'Cause he's
we got it.
programmed.
I mean, yeah, I guess he likes tech. He wants to, and also Eggman likes roller coasters, but that has nothing to do with any
Yeah,
of them.
I mean, when you think it's because they're all just generic tropes. This is literally just the Deadly Six minus Xena.
Right, we could have had Lady Eggman, like
Oh,
Where were the gender
Dr.
bends?
Egg
Yeah.
Lady, right?
God damn
or
it.
that
Dr.
would
Egg
have
Woman,
fixed everything.
Especially if
know,
there was
man.
just one.
right? Oh man, right. But like, would the Egg Woman look like, like Mama Robotnik, or would it be like, closer to like Madonna or something?
She has to be sex. She has to be a really sexy Eggman.
Right. Oh, they would have.
Eggman's already pretty sexy.
Right.
I'd be scared.
Right.
Try not
Well,
to come
right.
jealous.
There were so many like versions of Eggman that you could have created, but they give us 5 and they all kind of blend in, and it doesn't help that you fight them over and over again. Okay, so in season 3, when they're all in the egg citadel, because I guess it's like, oh, the universe is starting to fall apart and they have to hide, and it feels like, oh, this is a base where we're going to figure out the next step of our plan, which they don't. They don't figure out anything there. Sonic just leaves, and it's like, I guess I'm going to give myself up and trust 9. But there is a moment where Sonic's like, hey, maybe we should listen to the Chaos Council, because he's like, oh, their tenacity and they never give up, and it's like they're always trying over and over again. He is describing Eggman in the sense that Eggman is always trying to win and can't. But the Chaos Council did win. Like, before Sonic showed up, the Resistance, or whatever they're called, seems like they were sort of on the fringe. Like, they weren't winning. They were fighting a desperate battle, and it's because of Sonic that they were able to inspire the rest of the populace to suddenly start attacking them. They haven't had a record.
Rouge even says in season 2, like, we always have to fight from the shadows, which certainly doesn't indicate that
Right.
they're doing well.
Right, so the Chaos Council does not have this record of failure. They have a record of success. Their failures only started because they are fighting Sonic the Hedgehog. So then them saying, oh yeah, we never give up and blah, 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 and all this and that, it's like, no, they won. Like, maybe if you're trying to figure out how to win a thing, you should also listen to the people who won. Because, like, that's the thing about Sat AM, right? Where Sonic's always like, oh yeah, I'm fighting and messing with the plans, but at the end of the day, Robotnik was still the one in charge. And, like, that's what the Chaos Council essentially is. And yet they want to be treated as goofy, and, oh, they always lose, and the baby is dumb. Oh, no. I mean, the baby is good.
David
I
Watch-
know.
Because it is weird. Like especially by the end, they try to do this whole thing of like, their biggest thing is that they're constantly fighting with each other, and it's like only when they all come together for a cause, that's when they become great. But it's like, again, like a lot of the stuff before is like, oh yeah, like they've already won, so it's like how come their infighting didn't cause a problem before then? Like, unless the whole intention was supposed to be they all started off as like, oh, we were like the perfect team, but then as things started going wrong, they kept blaming each other, and then it got to the point where everything, like, then it's like, oh, it fractured, like the infighting grew, but like, yeah, the story tries to imply that, there was always infighting between them. It's like, yeah, that it doesn't really work exactly.
Or you do a thing where it's like, well, if they are 5 pieces of one Eggman, because I guess the end of season 2 is supposed to tell us that, what if there was a moment where, like, they figured out a thing and they went, the only way we can win is if we put them back together and then you actually have real Eggman there, and we're like, we don't know what that's going to do, but here we go. Is this going to help us? Is this going to ruin us? Maybe not. I don't know. It's just the show does...
David, but then you wouldn't get the funny baby jokes or the juice cleanse jokes. Like, you'd be missing out on a lot.
Well, I mean,
if
we're nearing the end of the season, it's like, because what ends up happening to them is they all fall out a hole and they're in space, shatter space, I guess. Are they dead? Would they? Is there oxygen out there? I guess Sonic's out there. He seems to be able to breathe. Shadow's fine, but I don't know. Did they die? Are they not?
We've seen them breathe in space before.
I don't
know.
It's like the whole premise is broken because they just went, okay, fight sequences, we got it. We've made some designs. Whoa. But they didn't actually sit down and think, what are the rules of this world? What are the rules of the worlds? What is Sonic trying to do? Like, what is the only core conflict seems to be Sonic trusts everyone and then says to Nine, please don't be bad. And then Nine is like, but I'm going to be bad because you're not listening to me. And that goes back and forth until finally Nine goes, yeah, I guess you're right. I will not be bad. But it gets frustrating because there are so many elements of the show that if they were restructured or written differently, that it could turn into something really interesting. I know when Prime was first announced, I was secretly hoping, they'll do a show that involves like other versions of Sonic that we know of, but I knew that wasn't actually going to happen, even though there are plenty of versions of Sonic that they could use where there aren't legal issues involved. Like, they could have easily done stuff, especially since WildBrain was involved. So setting him in AOSTH in Underground, and it's like, Sega owns X, and boom, like, there's no issues there. It doesn't matter. If they needed to create new worlds just so they wouldn't have to worry about anything at all, it feels like they didn't give much thought besides the most basic premise of what this world is supposed to be, but not really thinking how it actually fits into the grander narrative, because the grander narrative is Sonic broke the universe. They could have just been like, Eggman accidentally stumbles across the multiverse and they fall out a hole, and then Sonic has to try and get back home. Like, you could have done that, and that would have simplified things, and you wouldn't have to deal with the existential crisis of, these characters are going to cease to exist. But I guess the show didn't care because it doesn't address the existential crisis of, are these characters not going to exist once Sonic wins? It doesn't matter. It's the whole show, it feels like it doesn't matter. So then when you get to the end and it's like, hey, I guess none of it really mattered. It does that weird reset thing, which I guess it makes it feel even more hollow than like Sonic 06, because Sonic 06 resets itself, but at least you are presented with a moment of crisis where Princess Elise goes, I don't care about the world, I don't want to forget about you, Sonic. And Sonic's like, just smile. And it's like, that's just enough for her to be like, okay, I have to sacrifice this thing that I care about to like, there is that moment.
It's this gentle way of saying, like, this needs to happen.
There is,
like, no matter what, this is right,
which is important to like the whole premise and narrative of 06. Even if there are issues there, like, they had enough forethought to think about that moment. Prime doesn't care about that. It's just whatever.
I'll tell you, David. You want to know what it is? They didn't want to close the loop definitively in case they get to come back and we get to see all these fun characters again. You want to see them all again, right?
All right, in 2027 we'll get...
The Shatterverse has been reshattered on Sonic Prime, only on Netflix. Whoa! I was thinking about it as we were talking.
Yes.
I was like, would I ever be excited to see any of these characters? Putting aside, like, would the next season be written better, maybe, right? Just like shoving that to the side and like just how I feel right now. It's like, no. Maybe if Ninetales kept getting added to mobile games like he already is and the ones I don't play, I'd be like, oh yeah, that guy, he was okay. Kind of.
Well, then...
But like the rest of them, I'm just like,
They could say, hey, there's new Shatter Spaces. We can get space. Like, we live in space.
Let's just drill down and continue the issue.
If we get more Shadow... then I'd be okay with it.
Like
Shadow. if they were like, Shadow is going to be a main character this time, then I'll be like, okay, I'll see what you're cooking here.
Yeah, I guess that brings me to a question that maybe steps to the end of Sonic Prime discussion. Do we have? I'm sure we have more we could say. Do we have more to say?
I don't know. I feel like I'm just.
I think your answer is definitely yes.
I don't know, because I feel like I'm jumping all around. Man, what were you going to move on?
Just like Sonic Prime. I guess I'm just like, where do you go from here? Like, is it Sonic Prime if there is no Shatterverse?
Oh,
right? Like, is it just a Sonic show after this and then it's weird? Like, what do you do?
Well,
I guess you just keep shattering.
I guess so. Okay, right, because one of the things that the show never really capitalizes on, aside from like very brief moments, is these are different versions of the same character. What happens when they meet and interact with each other? You do have very, like, there's the slight bonding between all the Amy's. There's a scene where the one big from New York points at the big from the Jungle Place, and it's like, oh,
and they clock out.
There's like the shades, very small shades of it, and I guess there is like a little bit with New York Knuckles and Pirate Knuckles, but they, like, once they see each other and go, it's pretty much over. Nobody cares. I guess the only thing you could really do is that if somehow all the Shatterspace versions of these characters exist, if they interact with the Prime versions of them. Like, what does Nine do when he meets Tails? Like, Nine wanted to become friends with Sonic and then felt betrayed. And, like, I guess maybe even a little jealous of Tails as a concept. What does Nine do when he sees real Tails? Prime Tails? Like, what is the interaction there?
And Tails is like, oh, this is weird, but I'm nice, so I'll befriend you.
Yeah, I guess
right?
so.
And he'd be like, oh, I was silly.
Right. And I guess because all those other characters have sort of gotten to a place where maybe them meeting their original self, the Prime versions of themselves, doesn't matter. But that's the only thing I could really think of, like, oh, wouldn't that be interesting to explore? I guess aside from, oh, there's a couple other universes you didn't explore, and that's why things are still messed up, I guess. A world...
Because I was just thinking, I was like, man, when Gwen pops up at the end of the first Spider-Verse, I was like, oh, let's go. I can't wait. But if, like...
Right.
Pirate Knuckles popped his head in and was like, "Yar, you be me, but not a pirate." I'd be like, "Oh God, please no more."
I mean, that's pretty much it. Knuckles just be like, "Oh yeah, wait, yeah, no,
I am envious of your three's ability to A, remember things from the show, and B, care about it enough to pontificate on it. Because really, when I watched this, it just, for me, everything compounded and went the other way, where I wasn't like, oh man, why is this? Why is that? Outside of the direction of season 3 being the way it is, why would you do any of that the way you did that? But it just repelled me from the show, and I was like, man, I just don't care. I don't know if I can care. You know, I've seen some people be like, oh, I'm going to try and watch everything at once now that it's all out. And I'm like, I think that would make it worse somehow.
Yeah,
I think you would have less good time, like marathoning the show.
Yeah, binging.
Maybe it wouldn't.
Oh, I don't know. I think because there's way too much repetition. Having some break makes sense, and doing all, I guess, 23 episodes at once would, because
Netflix did us a favor.
Right. I mean, you're definitely feeling the fatigue in season 3, but that's just encapsulating everything that's been happening before. At least, I guess, in season 1, we got to introduce something new. So, but there was still the repetition of Sonic going, whoa, different world. I mean, right, we haven't even mentioned, remember the time in season 1 when Sonic ended up in the pirate world and he's like, whoa, I hate water, but then he finds out that his shoes let him walk on water and he's like, oh, that's helpful, and then he is on a boat and gets thrown off the boat and it's like, no, don't throw me off the boat, I hate water, but then he's like, oh, wait, actually, I don't have to worry, I can stand on water, and so he has to relearn the fact that he can walk in water.
He has this dumbfounded look at his shoes and he's like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Before he even oh right, this happened before.
Right.
Man, and I'm just like, you could have, like, I don't know, classic Looney Tunes that or something where he's scared and he almost hits and he's like, oh wait, right, duh, and then he just moves on.
Yep.
But
no, he has to go through this process twice. Right. Oh, right. I wrote this note for episode 1. I said, it's funny how when Sonic is talking about how great things are in Green Hill, in parentheses, which apparently is the only place that exists, they use a clip where Sonic looks sad. Footage is from when Amy gives Sonic a palm tree in episode 5.
Look, man, he was right there laughing with all his friends who were just off screen. He's having a great time.
Right. I just sounded funny, like, oh, you picked the one clip where Sonic, like, doesn't look happy when you're like, wow, things are great. You got the palm trees, and it's like, oh. Well, because it is, I guess, that is also something that's meant to be part of the overarching arc of arcing Sonic arcs, and right where the palm tree stuff, which it feels like it's
is meant to be symbolic for sure.
Right, and in season 5 or episode 5 of season 1, you get look, Amy gave Sonic a palm tree, even though I guess this has happened many times, which seems a little redundant, but I guess that's what the show is about, redundancy. And it's like, oh hey, this tree symbolizes certain adventures we've had, or just like little things we've done. There's a joke about a coconut cream pie, which I thought was like, oh, that's kind of funny. Like, oh, they baked her a pie, and Rouge was like, I saw you buy a pie. And it's like, oh, wait, if they bought a pie, that means there's a place you can buy stuff. I don't know where that is in Green Hill. That also implies that, like, other people exist there. Oh, man. Remember, what was it, episode 2, when it's like, oh, hey, we're seeing all of these robots destroying Green Hill, and then pop, 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 all these buildings appear, and it's like, is it meant to be a time lapse? No, I think it actually happened that way. But then why did they knock down trees if they could just make everything appear? Paradox Prism, Knuckles is sad, Rouge is fine. It's just a little weird thing. But yeah, the whole palm tree thing, because I know like they're all obsessed over the palm tree in New York City, and Sonic's like, oh man, I miss the palm trees and the beaches. And then like there's the one cool palm tree in the jungle that the light was blocking it, but now it's there. It's like, oh yes, the palm tree. I guess palm trees represent land in no place, right? And then Tails or 9 is like, oh, here's 2 palm trees for Sonic. Like, it's meant to connect things. It's meant to bring things together. It's also when Prime Amy presented Prime Sonic with Prime Palm Tree, and he's like, oh, what do you mean? And she's like,
David, why are you making us watch the show again?
it's just right, because when Sonic's like, you're being a bit too sentimental, and she says, I guess you don't get it, do you, Sonic? I guess that's supposed to tie into Sonic caring about his friends, but he does care about his friends most. Like God.
He's just reckless like that, especially because the very end of the 9 fight, it's supposed to be Sonic is cooperating with people, and that's kind of that's supposed to be like the big surprise thing about like being like, oh, Sonic's actually listening to people. It's like
he's never done this before ever.
Well, in Sonic Heroes,
he's never done it before.
It's very Shadow behavior from Sonic.
Well, I mean, if it was a show about Shadow, maybe it would make a bit more sense. But then also Shadow would be competent and only be 3 episodes long.
Shadow would just show up and snap the egg council's neck and get all the prisms and be like, oh yes, I've done it.
Right. Oh right.
And then the credits would roll.
Oh, in season during the long 4-episode fight, there was a moment where it's like the other 2 Tails are dead, but they're not really. But it was like, oh wait, are we hitting a point where maybe there are stakes? And what would happen if any of these versions of these characters died? Would that mean this element of the character is just gone forever? Kind of like in the Neverending Story 2, where his memories were wishes, but then he was forgetting things and he's actually becoming less of a person, and then he had to reclaim, like that movie and the thing in the 1980s.
Yes, I remember that.
I remember.
Yeah, I remember.
I watched Stranger Things. I know what Neverending Story is.
Oh yeah, remember that time in Stranger Things when it did really well on Netflix, but then Sonic Prime came out on Netflix instead?
Sonic Prime evaporates Stranger Things goodwill and wipes out all profits.
Sonic Prime did really good numbers for Netflix, so that makes me wary of more Prime.
Yeah, but I mean, would Netflix bother? Cause it feels like Netflix was kind of moving away from animation in general for a time, right? They weren't spending as much money.
Why'd they make this?
Well, they made it right before.
Also remember that we don't know exactly how much Netflix was involved in the production. As far as we know, they pretty much just paid to distribute it, and that's it. This very much feels like this was someone at Sega gave WildBrain and Man of Action kind of the go-ahead to work on this, and Netflix was just Netflix was the one who's like, okay, we'll release it. It's hard to think of
David said Netflix was involved from the beginning.
David.
I think Netflix was involved, because I tried looking into the earliest hints of the production of being. I wasn't able to find anything of like confirming that Netflix straight up paid for it, but I do know, the first time this was announced, it was announced and revealed as as a series being released on Netflix. So that's why that's why it feels like a bit like kind of like a weird, like it's a bit kind of confusing. Of we don't know if like this is like, oh, like Netflix is, if it's somebody else will pay for it and then Netflix will release it, or Netflix one being like, we want more, and then we'll like put in money. Yeah, it's
I'm looking at their engagement report from the year, and Sonic Prime was just a little behind Breaking Bad season 1.
Right,
which means a lot of people watch this show.
That's a lot of people. Right, in the credits for Prime, do they?
That's just for 2023, though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I remember Breaking Bad came out the same year.
Yeah, I guess if you're putting the joke aside, obviously less people will be watching Breaking Bad season 1, right? But at the same time, like, I'm surprised by just how high up it is compared to the things around it. Like, Stranger Things is here. It doesn't say which season, but Stranger Things is like after Sonic Prime on this list. So I'm like, oh no, there will probably be more.
Right. I'm just
do we know how well Sonic Boom did on, because I thought I remember seeing that Sonic Boom did like the past couple years when it was on. I remember that supposedly that one being pretty decent.
It's number 723 on this list, right behind Peppa Pig season 5.
That's just for this year,
season
though, right?
5?
That's just 2023.
Right, we don't.
Yeah.
That is, we don't know how much anyone watched anything before this moment in time, and I think that's not very helpful.
It was on Hulu a lot, which is
and also a funny thing that I did realize looking that technically, it's not technically 3 seasons, but it technically released in 3 different years. Season 1 was in December 2022. Season 2 was in July 2023, and season 3 was in January 2024. So it did come out in 3 years, technically.
Oh, God. So much.
And that's true, because this, according to the report, it only tracks from January. This says January to June 2023.
It's not even a whole
at the top of this
year.
report. So it didn't get the Sonic Prime launch numbers in this.
Oh, that's just season 1.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that would propel it too much higher, honestly.
Well, right, if it's January and it premiered, was it December 2022?
December. It was in December, yeah.
Right, so I guess there's still, yeah.
You could watch episode 1 5 days early in Sonic Speed Simulator.
Oh, that's right.
Roblox!
They've released the first episode early every time. Is that a thing Netflix does normally, or
for their kids shows? Sometimes they do that, because the kids shows are like, we can throw them a bone. We don't.
Hey, it's for the kids, man. Whoa.
They should have put it in Fortnite. I'd watch Sonic Prime in Fortnite. I don't care. I'll be Peter Griffin and watch Sonic Prime.
Right. Wait, was there something Sonic in Fortnite once, or am I just? No, you never.
Not yet.
Okay.
Give it time.
Right. They could premiere the Sonic 3 trailer in Fortnite.
Now we're talking.
Honestly, yeah, could be.
Yeah, why not?
Game Awards, boring. Fortnite, let's go.
More like Jeff Smelly.
Right. I think Jeff Keighley, he can. There could be a Fortnite skin of him. And then when you play as him, he's like, "Hey guys, welcome to the Game Awards. We're gonna premiere the Sonic 3 trailer, so you have to play as him."
He says this every match. That'd be a hell of an emo. I'd pay for that. As long as he also has Master Chief comes, then I'd play it all the time. Like, I'd give up gaming aside from Fortnite.
Man, why isn't Jeff in Fortnite? That's what I would do.
Common ground, we live in the trees. This guy's paranoid, says Gnarly Knuckles in the episode barking up the wrong tree.
Thorns, I hate thorns, says Sonic. He lands in thorns and says, "Thorns, I hate thorns."
Right. Wait. What is Jungle Rose? Her name is Thorn.
Thorn Rose.
Thorn Rose.
Thorn Rose. Black Rose. Rusty Rose.
But okay, right? Because there's this comic book character called Rose and Thorn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a lady, and there's Rose, and that's her normal day. But then sometimes she goes to bed and wakes up and is like, "I'm gonna be a superhero," and I'm Thorn, and Rose isn't aware that she's Thorn.
But yeah, but also Rose and Thorn is also just, I mean, like Thorn, like thorns are on roses, so it's like, oh, to call Amy Rose Thorn, it's like, oh, it's an easy naming pun to pick.
Right, hence Rose and Thorn, the comic book character that I just brought.
You know what? This is where I make my stand. It would have been very epic and funny if in-universe Boom Sticks was in the jungle world for a scene, and she's like, man, these guys are weird.
Oh, right.
And then she looks at the camera, and then she's never seen it again.
That would have been so good for just Sticks too, because Sticks is like the wild card. Like the one thing I like in the Archie comic crossover is just like Styx is insane and seems to be aware of so many things that she shouldn't be aware of, and so like if you're going to do a multiversal story, you have it so there is just the one Styx, and she's just able to like do weird things and go places, and like, you know, she isn't omnipotent like a Mxyzptlk, but she is like I don't know, maybe she's kind of like a Deadpool, sort of like, oh, I'm paying it, I know someone's watching me, it's fine. Like nobody else realizes they're in a show, but she knows she's in a show. Like that's sort of just insanity. And yeah,
no, Sonic and Shadow know they're in a show. They go to Ghost Hill and they break the fourth wall together.
Do they?
That was a fun moment. Yeah, Sonic talks about how Shadow roller skates. Shadow looks at the screen and says they're air shoes or something.
Oh, right, but that's not Ghost Hill. It's Green Hill. That's the beginning.
I thought that was are you
no,
sure?
the Shadow's air shoes. That was from like the first episodes.
The second,
I guess so. Maybe.
Right,
yeah.
Right, where it's like, right, because they would be too sad to break the fourth wall when they go to Ghost Hill. Sonic would be like, man, I can't believe they do it very briefly.
Together.
Yeah. I like little moments like that. I guess that was a good joke. I went, oh yeah, that's good. And then
but it's better if they didn't, but Styx did. Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh, like have Styx. Mm-hmm. Sega owns Styx. Put Styx in there. Who cares? And like don't have many versions of Styx. Have one version of Styx and have that be Boom Sticks. And she's like, I don't even know how I got here. Or like,
Boom.
You know,
comedy. It works. People would laugh. I promise.
Well, you know, just throw me a bone.
Tell you,
give me some. Jesus Christ.
The show was missing Comedy Chimp.
Oh
my God, Comedy Chimp.
If they just put Comedy Chimp in the show, it'd be great. That's all they had to do.
Right, like you have, Comedy Chimp could be the mouthpiece of the Chaos Council. So like all the TVs everywhere, like it shows Comedy Chimp, and he's like, yeah, you know, well, I love the Chaos Council Empire, because I guess it's not the Eggman Empire, they're Eggmen, and he, you know, says something about eggs.
I love Comedy Chimp.
Yeah, Comedy Chimp, right. And then the last time we see him, he talks about like, oh, I actually hate hard-boiled eggs, and then the feed gets cut, and presumably he
dies.
He's killed. Rest in peace, Comedy Chimp. 2022 Shadowverse to 2024 Shadowverse. He never had pants.
Oh.
Comedy Chimp. What will he do in the Shadowverse?
Oh my God! Now we know what to do for season 2.
Comedy Chimp and Dr. Babble need to have their podcast talk show.
That would be the most hated Sonic product ever conceived, and I would listen to it.
Oh yeah. Do the egg people age? Like, is Dr. Babble just a baby forever?
That goes back to the question of like, what is the history of these characters?
Right. Well, yeah. So you could have comedy. Right. You could have Comedy Chimp be like, "Hey, Dr. Babble. Hey, so tell me a little bit about your parents." And be like, he's like, "Oh, that's
wow, Dr. Babble. You've been a baby since I was a baby.
Remember we went to daycare together? Yeah. And you were the first person who laughed at my jokes. Wait. What do you mean?
What is that?"
What do you mean you didn't laugh? Oh, you were I don't
know. Sonic Prime.
Sonic Prime, season 2.
I think we're done.
Hey, stop when you're on top. Let's get out of here.
What What a spectacular use of everyone's time involved with the production to watching of the show. And you for listening to this. Thank you so much. I think I need a juice cleanse.
Oh, all right. So we call ourselves Babbleheads, right?
Babylonians.
Wait, oh,
Oh God! Right. So what ends up happening, right, is that Jet the Hawk.
Chris, turn it off.